last to go was Russia. And if the point of this parade was for Belarus to feel better about its own military power and ability, Russia was being a dick about it. No matter how much firepower or how big a tank Belarus showed, Russia showed something about 5 times as large. And it was mean. It was like going to somebody's birthday and bringing yourself a much nicer present than anything they're going to get. Like, it was just very much a like, oh, did you just bought a new Audi? Well, I got a Tesla. Yeah, I just bought myself a Tesla. Enjoy your Audi, though. I hear those are nice. Like, it was just blowing them out of the water with these like massive rockets that were like just going down the street, and I'm sitting here like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable. But I'm a guest here, so I'm not going to make any loud comments. Like I said, everybody there was pretty much very quiet and respectful all the time, so me just like talking at all sounded ridiculously loud and echoey, literally wherever we were, including crowded public areas. Russia was being a dick about it. They were just kind of showing off, and it's like, none of that was necessary, Russia. You're at somebody else's party. You could have calmed down a little bit. You're being rude. The parade is over, and we wander. We wander our way out. It was cool. The music was cool, and it was interesting to see about the culture, and just to really be in something that's so important to the people there. Like, this is a big day. Like, this is a big day of the year. And it was cool that it aligned that we were there both for this parade and for the European Games. Like, that just lined up really nicely. But we started walking, and what didn't line up nicely was that Yenna's dad had insisted we all go to this with him, but he had no way of getting us home. There were too many of us to fit in a taxi cab. My phone didn't work because I was out of any kind of range of its service, which is probably dumb. I'm not good. I'm not prepared. I trusted other people to handle these things for me, and that was a mistake. And I should also probably get a phone that can do global roaming. But and my boyfriend's phone had run out, so we couldn't get we couldn't call a cab. And yeah, there were too many of us, so I'll fit into a taxi cab, and the buses weren't running anymore because it was past midnight. So it was us, my boyfriend's dad, his kid's mom, with the baby heaved over her shoulder. This 2-year-old's now out at 1 a.m. We're just wandering the streets. Now, if you will throw your memory back to the beginning of this debacle of a day, I was told I would not be needing a jacket. It was freezing. It was like 40-something. It was very cold, and I had no jacket, and we had no way of getting home, and it would have taken us hours to walk there. So I am livid. And lucky for me, nobody knows English, so I could just put a smile on and murmur angry, angry things to my boyfriend in a cheery voice so that nobody would have any idea that I was supremely, supremely upset about what was happening. Every element of it. I was like, he didn't have an idea of how to get us back. He just told us all that we had to go. Even though I told you I didn't want to go. I didn't even want to be here. Okay, good. I'm just clarifying. But his dad managed to pull through after about an hour of wandering the streets with an idea of how to get us home. As I said before, he is friends with the guy who conducted the state band, and he just called him, and they brought the bus, like the band's bus. So we got on like the band's bus, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. I bet they're gonna be, celebrating a job well done and cracking jokes, or at least talking, right? People talk on a bus. No one was talking on the bus. There was no talking on the bus. I know I keep hammering this point home, but if you are looking for zen and for the ability to just be quiet and with your own thoughts, but you don't like the woods or like mountains, go to Belarus. Go to Minsk. Live there for a while, because no one is going to talk to you, and you are not going to have to listen to other people talk unless they're explicitly doing a transaction. You can be standing on public transport, people are not even going to look at you, which, worked for me. It's helpful when you have social anxiety, but also there's like a level of quiet that is worse if you're an anxious person. And that was how it was on this bus. Like, it was so quiet. It felt like they were all hiding from something. Like, if you've ever seen Jeepers Creepers 2, which if you haven't, you should go watch it. It's a great movie. Jeepers Creepers 2, there's a bunch of high schoolers on a bus, and they are hiding from a monster, even though it knows that they're on the bus. But high schoolers are not smart in horror movies. That could be a whole nother, 30 minutes of jokes. High schoolers are not smart in horror movies. So these kids are just sitting on the bus silently while the monster's on the roof and, trying to figure out what to do to get into them. And that is how quiet it was on this bus. It's like they didn't want the monsters to find us. So I sat on this silent bus, freezing cold. My boyfriend did give me his jacket. Eventually, after I asked and bitched about how cold it was for 20 minutes, he did eventually give me his jacket. He wore a jacket. Why did it tell me not to, but he brought one? I just realized that. I'm extra upset now. Anyway, so we're sitting silently on this bus, all of us, and then it just they drove us home. And we get back to the apartment. I'm exhausted. I'm so effing tired. I can't even tell. I'm just done with this day. And we get upstairs, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to bed. And my boyfriend's like, well, I'm going to stay up a little bit longer and talk to my dad. And I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm too exhausted to care. And I went and, I got dressed, and I was getting into bed, and there's a knock at the door. And I'm like, that's weird. And so I went and I opened the door, and it's my boyfriend's dad. And he's like, and he goes, Shy? And kind of gestures towards the kitchen. It is coming on at 3 a.m., 3 in the morning. And he just asked me if I wanted tea. So it turns out, at least in my boyfriend's house, I'm going to generalize and say it's a general Russian thing. Maybe I'm wrong. But at least in my boyfriend's house, it was very standard that you come back from whatever you're doing that night, and you sit down in the kitchen together, and you have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee before you go to bed. And I was too tired for that. And so he says, chai? And I say, niet, no, thank you. Clearly, he thought I was just too silly. And I was just being a silly, dumb American. And I did not understand what he was saying. Because it turns out refusing the tea is very much a faux pas. And just not even a faux pas. It did not cross his mind that I did not want tea. That did not come to him as an actual So he assumes that I don't know what he's saying. And he did a very classic thing when someone who doesn't speak your language doesn't understand what you're saying. He said it again, but louder. So he yells, chai? Chai. And he says it slower. Chai. And I'm like, oh my God. Anytime I see somebody in the U.S. do this to somebody who doesn't doesn't know English, I'm going to smack them in the face, because it does not help to have the words said slower and louder. And also, Everyone knows what chai is. Chai is a type of tea here. It's not that the word was confusing me. So I'm like, chai, yes, I understand. Я понимаю, I understand, and I'm telling him in Russian, I get it. I just don't want the tea. But he's like, okay, it's not computing. This is not something that he's run across before. You do not refuse tea at the end of the day. So he thinks for a little bit and he goes, coffee? Which is coffee. It's mild Russian pronunciation of coffee. And I say, niet. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm standing here, and he goes, coffee. He tries to say it with an American accent because clearly it's the Russianness of the word. I'm not getting it. So he goes, coffee, like he's in fucking Brooklyn. And I'm like, no, niet, no thank you. It is 3 a.m. I do not want coffee. I am exhausted. So now I'm just standing in this children's bedroom with my boyfriend's dad, and he's yelling, chai at me as I yelled, niet, nietu, niet. Finally, he he gives up on me, I guess, and I have yet again disappointed the Russians. And he sadly turns around and shuts the door. And I'm like, finally, I can go to sleep. I can get some flim-flanging rest after this day. And a little while later, the door opens again, and it's my boyfriend, who I assume has come to say goodnight and that he loves me. And he says, hey, my dad sent me to ask you if you want some coffee or tea. Yeah. Fine, I'll take a cup of tea. And then I went and had a cup of tea. And that is, I think, everything that I have. Honestly, there's more, because we were there for a while. We were there for like a week. But I feel like that first day really just summed it up. And I learned a couple of things, you don't refuse tea from a Russian. You just drink it. It's like, I never even tried with my British friends. When they asked me if I wanted tea, I knew from the outset, like, you say yes, you just take the damn tea. So I guess I should have taken that learning and applied it in Belarus as well. It's also funny to me just how different people, like, I think there's a very cultural thing about how many times you have to ask and reject something before the person will stop asking you. Like, in my house, and where I grew up, is somebody says to you, hey, do you want a soda? And you go, no thanks. And maybe they go like, are you sure? We got a bunch of different sodas. You could totally have one. It's a hot day. What, you want a soda? And then you go, no, really, I'm good. I don't need anything to drink. And they go, okay. And maybe they say okay like they doubt you. Maybe it's like, okay, for sure. We got it. You want it. At most you get asked twice. In Russia, I won't say in Russia. I wasn't in Russia. And my boyfriend gets mad at me when I generalize it to Russia. But in this specific Russian family that I spent time with in Belarus, I believe the minimum number of times that you ask someone if they want something is approximately 2 million. Or at least 1,000. Because anything that they asked, it was like, I could not say no heartily enough and enough times. And it was even stuff that they didn't really want to do. That's the thing. That's the other thing that makes me laugh. Is like, we were hanging out with my boyfriend's other grandparents, and I was cold again. I didn't bring a goddamn jacket. I am dumb and I don't learn. And they asked me, well, do you want us to get you a jacket? You're clearly freezing. You're shaking. And I was like, no, I don't want a jacket. And they're like, we could go get you one. We're right by our house. We were not right by their house. We were like a 50-minute walk away from their house, and my feet were hurting because we've been walking so much over this trip. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. And they asked me again. They're like, let us go get you a jacket. I was like, I really don't want to go. And they like stood up. Everybody stood up and was like, let's go get her a jacket. And I was like, I don't want a jacket. I don't want this. And they were like, let us give you a jacket. And I was like, fine, you win. Let's go get me a jacket. And then we started walking, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go get this jacket. And everybody else looked upset too. And I'm like, I said to my boyfriend, I'm like, honey, why do I feel like everybody's mad at me? And he's like, you should have said no more. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I was screaming, no, I don't want to go get this jacket. And we still were going, and none of us want to. Why? And he's like, because we're polite. And that is the end of the stories I will tell you of my adventures in Belarus. I hope you enjoyed them. If you didn't enjoy them, I don't know. Watch something else. Would you like some chai? You want some chai? Chai? How about some chai? Coffee? You want some coffee?